스님한테 뭐 송스다.
산제 저다 조제 조나라 저저 다제 저저 제베 조나제 돌라 벤제 산 조바라조 산제 저다 조제 조나라 산제 바르다 다네 저저 다제 Sanam je do la ben je zan je do bra jo zan je jo da zo je jo na la chan je da je zo je ve zan na je do la ben san je do bra jo zem je dam je de wa dan de ve jo dan den ba je dong wa da dong wa Dong ai me be de wa dam ba da me de wa je je nye re ja da nye da de ve da nya jen ba ne ba je ra je zem je dam je de wa da de ve je da de ba je je dong ai da Dong ai me be de wa dam ba da me de wa je je nye re ja da nye da de dam nyam je bo la ne ba je ra je zem je dam je de wa da de ve je da de ba je je dong ai je da dal wa je dong ai me de wa dam ba da me de wa je nye re ja da nye da de dam nyam je bo la ne ba je ra je sa je be je cho je me da da re ra ne je nye de je ba san je xing de me de bo wa je de ge nam da je che bo ra jo ja da wa da che je sha ba da je za je wa zhong zi da je je za ba tam je za chang zhe wei je wei shom de de zhang bei yang lai chang zai lai kang ge le zhe zhen ni zhen zhe nie da nam lao za lai wai che nie den gui che che zhe zhe nie je do ga le ban zhen kang da zhe Zher ma re men tam dong ai je ze wei zhuo zo gu lai pu je dar zi yang lai zhu yang de zun zhu da rai che zhu nie mo ni long le je zhang zhu chun ze je ma re ma za dong ai niu gu qi ni jun ze ra zhe de ne ta je sa ju dar zi yuan de lun Giao zi tu ve gu chu ra ju dai ju nian jian zhe da lu me zi Jian bei yang lai de zhen den qu ji jie ra ve zi re jie da lu de mu men ba rab zan Ga dai den ju sheng lu do ba ye lu zhe ba Nao za lai de zo lai sem je nam je sam ba da lo ye che ra che da che jung tu mu te ba ye che je go ro du so lo
Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. In terms of what we call oral transmission long, and to conclude the session, and also to conclude the chapter, we are doing well. But in terms of understanding and also from my own side, in terms of doing an adequate job of explaining, hopefully we are doing well. And so until the end of the chapter I will read the verses in Tibetan, and also I will do my best to read that part in English as well. Kanda dewe tunam jejuru shing, kanda nuna miji jonjuru, jada gawe tupa kunje shing, tala nuje tula naba chidara lula, kunle memba daba kunji idir minjirwa, deshin simjun, naba chinayan tuji chinam jebe tamyato, dewe dagen rola nujebe, tuji chekun miji jurwa, diti tiring, susuru shaji miji kama, tetu zabarsu. Deshin shenam jebar jiledu, teni zonden jikden chendu jun, roman dobe dagi chinsokon, gumjam mingon jikden kunjidon, rowandikon, tuji dachidan dadon zebandalan, tetso me, simjeng oran tongwaan didanyan, gundidanyan chichir kumechi, dinye deshin shekba nye jenye rando yandar drupaan dinye do. Jikden dungha sewaan, dinye di tete dagi tatu dinye cha, pena jaba mengashi, kiho mana, nujikan, kiho mijan rambuta, nujan chinu mijidi. Ndetara teji mayin ji jabun tutub diyo mo, tejin nuje nyamchungwa, gayan chedo semeje, ndetara nyawe somato. Tuje denam diyo mo, tetara manji jadu, simjanam nam guwar jabota shi tuna sunjim mengo cheba. Nyungwan juwa kanyinba, nyawe nuba tejido, jabota shi ngunayan, simjan guwar cheba yan, tobar juwa kanyinba, sanjin yeji, mesido simjan gule chungwa yan, mawan sanjin rubdasho. Tsendin yela pachinda, tradan jinjiru chimato. Kote zoe penza soda neme badan chabayi hindu yinrigan sowadan kulo jiwe deje top janju sembe chobalan jubale zoba denba shi jate lewu tukwa wo. Why do I generate pride and not act like a servant toward those masters for whose sake my lords have no regard to their own selves, by pleasing those in whose happiness the lords of sages find delight, in whose pain they experience grief, all the lords of sages are gratified, and to wrong them is to wrong the sages. Just as there is no mental pleasure in all sensual gratification whatsoever when one's body is on fire, likewise, there is no way for the compassionate ones to be happy when sentient beings are in pain. Therefore, whatever I have brought to all those of great compassion by harming sentient beings, that sin now I confess. That sin now I now confess. May the sages forgive that which has aggrieved them. In order to please the Tathagatas, today, with my entire being, I place myself in the service of the world. Let streams of people step on my head and strike me down. May the protector of the world be pleased. There is no doubt whatsoever that these compassionate beings regard all beings as themselves. as they not seen as the protectors in the form of sentient beings. Why? Then is there disrespect for them. This alone is pleasing to the Tathagatas. This alone is accomplishment of one's own goal. This alone removes the suffering of the world. Therefore, let this alone be my resolve. When some king's men tyrannizes the populace, the far-sighted among them cannot retaliate, because that man is not alone, and his power is the king's power. So one should not disparage any weak person who has done wrong. Sorry, I think I was reading the ones in the brackets. Since his power is the guardians of hell and the compassionate ones, therefore one should please sentient beings, just as a servant would a hot-tempered king. What could an angry king do that would equal the anguish of hell experienced as a result of inflicting mental pain on sentient beings? Or what could a gratified king give that would equal Buddhahood, experienced as a result of delighting sentient beings? Sorry, my punctuation is just out of control. Let alone future Buddhahood, do you not see that in this life fortune, fame and happiness ensue from pleasing sentient beings? While transmigrating, a patient person attains beauty, health, charisma, long life, and the abundant joy of Chakravarti. Every time I come down the stairs, then I pass by the coffee shop. So although I'm not really supposed to drink now caffeine, then still it's difficult to let go, you know. So therefore I'm finding an excuse to drink today. So don't mind me. So as you read these verses, even in the past, for those of you who have attended either these sessions in the past or those of you who might have practiced and read also, to some of you, you know, maybe, coming from the West, maybe sometimes these languages might give you, goosebumps, or it might sort of surprise you, to say the least, in some ways. That from every angle, or not every angle, but from some angle, a few of these words sound very religious, you know. And so therefore, I've said it in the past, I say it here again. I'm not trying to defend Shantideva from any aspect. As I always say, the words he used, or not just him, but any great masters like him, you know, like him. So I'm stressing on that, meaning realized bodhisattvas. When they express the understanding of Buddha Dharma to the audience, one thing that we have to realize is that they are using the language in a way what is available to them at that time. What is most common, phrases, sentences, sayings, even the notion of common sense. All of those are being used according to that time, and so therefore it might sound very religious in some ways. Yeah, and so therefore we don't have to feel that this is and these are his words, and then we have to obey them, as command or as commands. So we can just sort of change them. Like for example, the idea of in the 130th verse, when I was reading in English, I found it funny because not that I'm laughing at Shantideva, but the way we might understand, since his power is the guardians of hell and the compassionate ones, it sounds like good cop, bad cop. And so the Buddhas are there, saying it's okay. And on the other hand, then the idea of tomorrow, or the unknown tomorrow, or the idea of the lower realms, the so-called lower realms, seem to appear as the bad cop. And so these are just metaphors, and we don't have to take them literally. That's the whole point. At the end of the day, whatever makes us tick, or whatever makes us motivate, or whatever makes us train the mind, and from that kind of perspective, if we approach it, then if you find certain things uncomfortable, then we will overcome that. So it's true that I've been shuffling and sort of going freelance in terms of explaining these verses. I didn't go one by one or word by word, and in between then thinking out loud many of my sort of personal thoughts. And so therefore, to a certain extent, I may have maybe confused you with too many information, And so if that's the case, I also apologize. And I'm just sort of trying to interpret, or trying to share how I find these teachings speak to me, or how it's effective to me in some ways. Not that I have been able to apply these and gain results, But just by going through this as both as a practice and also as advice, then I try to make it digestive for myself, and then I just share that to you, And so therefore, it may not be exactly your cup of tea, and so therefore, it could be confusing, but at least that's the intent. As I said yesterday, there is no way of actually, or in absolute, displeasing the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In terms of understanding, they have complete understanding of how emotions work, and so therefore, and the since they are supposed to have immense or timeless compassion, they completely understand if we are stuck in certain state of confusion. But it's just to motivate ourselves to find a reason, to find a purpose, to overcome the confusion, and therefore to think of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as there, as our guardian, as our parents, as words that are used here as lords and sages and so on, as if they are superior in some way. So it was a language that was used a lot during those days, and nowadays we can sort of change that, from sages and all that to to a good human being, a good citizen, a good doctor, or anything like that, according to our time, from a social point of view, or from a worldly, from a contemporarily, from our time, from our era. Who do we look up to most? And so we can see the Buddhas in that sense, and then displeasing them would mean not exactly them being angered or being really upset. It's just that at the end of the day, we make ourselves miserable. That's all there is, We just waste time. We pass the time in a miserable way. And that's the real hell, and that leads to many things, yes? That leads us to not just on a mental level, depression and all those things, anxiety and so on, but that also leads to just not allowing our body also on a physical level to be healthy also, and then create all kinds of disease, and then to a point where we merge our mental afflictions and we drive our body to a certain extent in order to, let's say, commit suicide, or to in the name of religion, or in the name of the nation, or in the name of our loved ones. Then on a physical level, that's also the physical hell, and on a mental level, that disturbance, that misery is the hell. And so we try to sort of identify that state or result as if they are the forces of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in a way, to teach a lesson, sort of thing, So it's just a matter of perspective. So it's not that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are up there and some sort of a gang leader, or but maybe a very sort of like a, not exactly benevolent, but some sort of a boss who we both love and hate, sort of thing. And then on his right and left wing, then he has all kinds of forces that are there to correct our perspectives and so on. So that's just sort of a comical imagination. But sometimes we'll be surprised just how, I mean, if you think those ideas are comical and seem far out, sometimes we'll be surprised just how comical we are of ourselves, you know, in everyday situation. Yeah, when we come across what we think is right and wrong, what is to abandon or what is to embrace. If you really take some time to just wonder over how that imagination started, in some ways we ourselves could be very archaic, very backward. But at the same time, in a very contradictory way, think that we're living in a very modern world. But at the same time, when the emotions come and the excuses for letting those emotions come forward could be very, very backward. Yeah. And so in that way, what Shantideva is saying here is, in a way, very relevant, you know. It's not out of date at all. Because when it comes to judging what is right and wrong, then the emotion sort of forces us to think in many ways as if me or my side is in every way possible always has some higher percentage, you know. So it's not always 50-50, but always thinking 51 and 49 at least. And so whatever is on the higher side, you know, the smallest of margins, we tend to think that that's exactly where we are. And so, as I said, the whole what we call practice or path is really just a way to observe all of this in a very unbiased way, you know. So that's why Shantideva puts all of this not exactly as an advice, like as if a grandfather, you know, but more in the context of a dialogue, more in the context of a conversation. That's why there are questions and answers and questions and answers. And to really get into it, to get involved into, as I said in the past few days, did you read, you know? Not just reading, you know, but if you just allow from time to time to put yourself in their shoes, let's say, you know, in terms of the person who's asking the question, in terms of the one who's saying, yes, but, you know. So put yourself in that shoes, like really intimately, you know, as if you're an actor, and really involved in the theatric sort of aspect of things. And then through that observation, then you realize something about oneself or something about society or whoever for that matter. And then from time to time you put yourself in the place of who's answering the question, in terms of, in this case, Shantideva. And then again get extremely intimate, and then either raise questions or answer those questions, you know. And then once again, through that observation again, then you see another half of either oneself or of others, you know. And in that way you get a complete picture. Yeah. So basically you put yourself in the shoes of anger, you put yourself in the shoes of patience, and then see how this turn out, how this sort of revolves. Because obviously there is no victor in here. It's just through that observation, it's like you becoming some sort of shrink, and then just simply observe, And so through that, then you get a more and more sort of clarity in terms of how fascinating actually our mind functions. Because in this case, since there is no expectation of who's going to win, as if we are watching a show, we don't know the ending, so that there is never really a spoiler, let's say. And like I said, we will have a marvelous time without having to feel that now this is where I am, now this is me, and then there are these special forces called Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who's going to correct or change or alter my fate and so on, So without feeling, as I said, mission, so there is no goal. And simply through that conversation, then you will arrive to a very peaceful center in a way. And then from there, if you feel like you need to do something, then you know exactly what to do. Because, as I said, each of us are intelligent enough, we are sane enough, to see what to do. And to not feel that we are just some sort of a children, or some sort of sheep. I mean, when I say children, sheep, I'm not saying those in a context, in a negative context, I'm just simply saying that we don't have to look down on ourselves, and we just know exactly what to do. But without the observation, without the awareness, obviously we are a little bit confused. And so I mean, one of the main questions that each of us have is now, okay, these teachings are sublime, great, but now how do we put this into practice? How do we take this into our everyday life, That's our biggest question. And so, if you read enough, now that you know what I meant by read, if you read enough, or if you understood a bit, then we will see that there is no real foreign product to bring into our home by reading this, because it talks about our everyday psychology, everyday emotions. And then one can see that Shantideva is not denying our emotions at all. In fact, he's tapping into various sort of almost subconscious or unconscious emotions that we never realized that we were actually expressing on a everyday level. And so first he's bringing those up, If you read the verses once, you will see that he's first of all sort of dusting it so that we reveal those events, or we reveal those emotions. And I mean, in a progressive way, if you put it, then at the same time he's not denying that they are not, as we say, not real, that it is there. And then also he's not putting them down as well, he's saying that this is how it, in terms of time, how it was, or how it is, And then, at the same time, through this dialogue, then he says how to just simply channel it, how to simply work with it. And you see now, in that way, then we can actually feel very much at home, meaning that there is no separate real practice to do other than realizing, opening ourselves up, having a great heart. I mean, bodhicitta, great heart, yeah? Having, we say heart, but that's just, again, another expression. We can call it the brain, we can call it the mind, we can call it the tummy. Sometimes we say, that person has guts, yes? Same thing. The gut is linked to the heart. It's inseparable. If you don't have the gut, you have no heart, yeah? So, yeah, good appetite, or good heart, or big heart, so that we don't deny that these emotions are there. And then constantly we don't demean them, or do the opposite, say that the heart is more important, or the brain is more important, or my mind is more important than the heart, because we always say, yes, my brain says something, but my heart says something, and to separate, because they say there will be no heart without the brain, because it's just a branch of the heart in a way. So, without making one spiritual and one temporal, but to see it in a way that they are interdependent. So, in that way, then we can realize that actually there was, in a way, no real journey, in a way. Meaning that what we call everyday life, what we call home, is exactly here. It's just that we had a very comical idea of a home, like emoji, of, if you type home, then a roof with chimney appears, yeah? And then we all have our ideal home. And so that's just a symbol, nothing more. But we really think that that is it. And then the moment you step out of that door, then it's so-called the outside world, So you see, even in that respect, we do play that part, of being spiritual and non-spiritual. And so therefore, it's just mind-boggling, in terms of how we go about everything. So, therefore, then what I'm saying is, you don't have to feel that you are finding a hard time, not finding time to practice. When we come together like this, maybe we can call it that we are trying to develop a particular view, particular perspective. But in terms of action, it's or the ground of action, it's always there. It's always present. The so-called enemy is there all the time. And the funny thing is, we always know that this idea of so-called friends and enemy is just labeling, because one day that enemy is one's friend, and the next day it's just the opposite. So there is no from that sense, then how do we justify? How do we create a judicial system? It's just mind-boggling. Nevertheless, because of that boggling stuff, we are rich. We are wealthy. We are fortunate. And through harnessing that, we gain power. And through harnessing that, then we gain a sense of recognition, that recognition in terms of realizing that as if there is a purpose, to live, And so, the idea of enemy, the comical aspect is like maras or demons and so on, and little bit beyond that, or closer to that, is so-called systems, how to say, not so well organized social systems, and then neighbors, then closer and closer, that to a point where the so-called best friend, best of friends, and that seeking for their recognition on almost everything we do, on their face value, what they say is it, So, in that moment, we don't call that enemy, or we don't call that spiritual, but from both the sides, actually, they're as good as the highest of spiritual state, their recognition, their face value of what they say. And so, that's how strange it is. And so, Shantideva has put all of this in very clear perspective, sometimes brutal in a way, without sort of meandering and just to the point. And so therefore now, if you are tired of those cycles, if you are tired of just every day trying to fight this kind of war, then he's saying just use whatever, on a practical level, use whatever is our disposal. To think that if I do this from a worldly perspective, it will not be appropriate. Also from a spiritual point of view, it will also not be appropriate. On a practical level, but on a wholesome level, to think that it will just make myself miserable and waste my whatever time I have. Not that the the ending of my time is also final, you know. But just this, what we have, you know, in terms of right, you know, right, in terms of my right, or in terms of my whatever is due, it's just here. That's it, you know. In this, however long or short a moment we have, this is it. And so therefore, why would we want to spend this moment in a miserable way? Acidic. I would like to ask, where did you feel, from whatever I've said so far in the past few days and even today, that there was somehow lacking connection or relativity, let's say. So if you help me with that, then in my own way I can assist you. Yeah. So if you could pass the mic there.
Thank you. Karmapa, my question is about what you said yesterday, that the patience is another side of anger. That was very inspiring for me, but also a bit confusing, because yeah, because it's like I have two versions in my mind. Like one, for example, I have anger, so I use this energy that I have, directing it to patience. Yeah, because it's the same basically thing. Yeah, but I'm kind of using this energy or force or whatever I have, putting all my force into observing how passionate I can be, like observing the situation. And other vision that comes up for me is that okay, whatever energy or force coming in me with anger, maybe until it will calm down, I will not have a clear observation. So I wonder, like, should I calm down and then practice patience in a way?
Yes.
And another thing, just a small about this, also in another text, I read that the anger, the disturbing emotion of anger, it also leads to develop wisdom. So that's also go along with that, like, so what to do with this force or energy in a way?
Yes. Yeah, for my sake, those were the kind of questions that I wanted to hear. So, thank you. Yes, letting it settle, whatever disturbing emotions as they arise, letting it settle seems to be the most general advice. Letting it calm down and, or basically, as I said, run away, you know, and then, or just step back and and then once it comes down, then we can see what to do, you know. So probably those are very good reflexes to have. Yeah, I think very important reflexes. Yeah, because we never know exactly what kind of situation we're going to end up in. And so therefore, if you don't really have a clear idea of what to do in that moment of anger or whatever, probably the best is to step back, you know, to have that reflex. Yeah. But in that way, it has, you know, in its own great virtue, yeah, to step back. But at the same time, if you say, is that everything? Is that what it's all about? Then obviously that isn't it, you know. And so right now, what we do have, you know, moments like this, or basically, if we have, in short, if we have time to breathe, if we have time to think, it is the most amazing luxury that we have, to be able to have time to reflect, because I mean, you would know better than me, all of you, that you have to deal with all kinds of situations on a daily basis where you have simply no time to think, yes? And so therefore, using these leisures, or to have these leisures, it's, I mean, that's what we call precious human existence, to have that leisure. Yeah. So to be appreciative of that and to use that is one of the first things to do. Yeah. That's why we recite these texts, you know, recite our daily prayers, particularly to think of the precious human existence. So that's there. So during that time, as part of that so-called formal practice, is that on one hand, as I said, to realize the importance of those reflexes, but beside that, at the core of it, actually it's more towards your first question in a way. That to see that you just cannot separate the two. Yeah. Like in terms of generosity, this demand, you know, demandment, yeah, and generosity, you know, these two things are inseparable. So in the same way, anger and patience, that, you know, you just cannot separate the two. It's just the moment you separate them, then all hell sort of comes loose. But as long as you realize that any moment where it seems to sort of provoke anger is the moment to express patience. That there is, in a way, a link, you know. If you think in a connectivity level, then it puts everything into perspective. Yeah. That how do I say this? It's not a matter of, as we say in English, need or want. You know, it's not the case where we are saying we need anger, you know, or we are dependent on anger. that we want to be angry. Of course, nobody wants to be angry. It's just that we just, if we think that we're angry, then we just, that's it, you know. If you think we're angry, then that's it. And it's a headache or it's a problem that we just simply cannot solve. Yeah. And so, therefore, it just, maybe it's some sort of a mercy in a way, or maybe it's that itself is compassion, you know, because we just cannot get rid of it. And in one way or another, that anger will somehow provoke you to do something, anything, you know. So basically, it makes you creative. Yeah. It's like a bomb, yeah. And so it wants to explode, you know. And there is nothing you can do about it. And there is just no way to diffuse it or anything. Yeah. That's why I said that, you know, letting it calm down means letting it explode, and then just sort of observe, you know, and look at the pieces, sort of thing, and then use that as a reason to think, oh, anger is bad, anger is bad. But I mean, if you are being very precise, you know, that when all conditions are there, there's nothing we can do about it. And we can say, I let it explode, as if I had control over it. It's not the case also. Or it happened, I had nothing to do with it. That's not the case also. It just does what it does, you know. And so therefore, I think that's why I think the practice of mind training is so invaluable. Yeah. Because the only thing you can do is sort of shift the perspective over it. Because what's going to happen is going to happen, sort of thing, you know. And so it's not a matter of whether you let it explode or not. It's just you make the most of it. Yeah, you make the most of it. It's like saying, okay, I'm 30 or 40 or 80 or 90 years old, or let's say I'm so young or so old, you know. But as we all say, or as we all know, at some point I'm gonna die, you know. And so that explosion is sort of given, yes. And so what do? We make the most of it. Yeah. So just because it's going to explode, we don't let ourselves ruin the moment, and instead we make the most of it. And so I mean, in the towards the end of these verses, then it says, it almost sounds like saying, give your other cheek, you know, to be slapped. It sounds that way. And it says, even if the whole sentient being, the assembly of sentient beings in unison, if they, you know, stomp over, or if they happen to kick my head, I take it, you know. It's not the real case that you actually have a head, and sentient beings actually have those, you know, that many legs. That's going to walk all over. It's just a figure of speech at the end. And so therefore, it's not that you're doing something heroic to say, for the sake of sentient beings, I let myself be tarnished. I let my reputation go down. You know, it has nothing to do with that. It's just one end of the body, and with the other end of the body, just you know, just maybe colliding. You know, that's about it. Or let someone's hot air blow into these eardrums. You know, that's about it. There is no, how to say, it's not their lips or tongues or the throat or whatever part of speech. And it's also not in any way these twirling things that's hanging or protruding out of the head or the eardrums, you know. And then the sound waves, the vibration and the microphone inside, not in any part of those or phases or sequence of anything has to do with criticism or slandering or anything, you know. Or there's a sensitive core on the other end of the microphone or eardrums that is, how to say, innocent and so on. Yeah, it's just the ear captures that noise. That's about it, and we just because it's just noise, yeah. And so noise, we just don't know what to call that noise, and so we say, what does it mean? And then someone comes up and says, it means that. Meaning, starting from our parents, or the kindergarten teacher, or friends or peers who says, oh, it means that. And then we make it more complicated because we have more questions. Why? And then we say, oh, you were born because, I don't know, how you were born is because of, you know, that animation, Storks. This is the animation, I think, or Pixar, I don't know. You know, how we came into being and so on. Anyway, so we decorate things in many ways. We decorate that just plain noise, you know, as something, and that's it. And we cannot stop our eardrums from hearing the sound, no matter what we do. And we cannot stop the sound from becoming a sound in a way, you know. And so that meeting is what we call explosion, yeah. And through many decorations, we call that anger, you know. That's it, or slandering, or criticism, you know. And that's it. So actually, of course, we cannot really run away from it. Reflex is good, to think that we can run away from it. And that would be just to shut the ear, you know. Okay, it's a temporary solution, but doesn't go further. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we are going to hear one way or another. Even if we shut our ears, somebody will tell us, you know, hey, you know, that person said, you were like this and that, you're a bad cook, you know. And you really felt that you did it with all your heart and everything, you know. And then, yeah. And so therefore, yeah, we cannot stop that explosion, yeah, or that meeting, or that connectivity. And so, there is not much to do but let the hearing take place. Yeah. And And then, since we are so used to interpreting that noise as something, you know, of course it's not something, it's not even anything. Yeah. But since we are so used to it, to explain that as something, you know, as slandering or criticism, then we use that, we channel that. And then we say that, oh, that's not slandering, it's just noise, you know, or it's just the emotion speaking. And then we again use the very same mechanism, the very same technology. It's like saying using its force against it, like judo sort of thing, you know. By using the very same thing. So therefore, you see, the practice of Bodhisattva is one of those practices where you're not destroying the enemy to and level its sort of kingdom, you know, to dust. It's the opposite, yeah, or not even opposite. It's something else entirely. It's more like just finding the best technique so that you, if you happen to look back afterwards, when you have applied or whatever, applied the method, that you see that you can never tell whether you altered or touched anything, you know. The English expression is not a single stone turned, right? Yes. You know, like that. So therefore, how do you do that? Obviously, it's you let that explosion take place. Yeah, there's no other way. Yeah. So you let it happen, but then you just shift the focus, you know. And you shift the focus so that you tell yourself initially that there's just a noise. And then you decorate, just like how we decorate, that it's not just an act of aggression, but the act of aggression has history and plots and twists, you know. In the same way, then we do the same thing, you know, by saying that it's not just a noise, but noise has a background, and that background is that that person didn't know what he or she was saying, you know. He or she didn't have a mind of his or her own, and that it was due to karma, you know. Of course, there's no karma, yeah. But it sounds nice, yes. It sounds like, oh yeah, you know. I mean, you see now each religion uses various different words. In Buddhism we say karma, or this part of the world for a long, long time, in India, they say karma. And then in the Western sides, you know, different words are used. Or in primitive times, then we use words like it's due to the Creator, you know. Nothing bad, you know, nothing horrible about it. It was just the language of their time. And so that's all it is. It's just a decorative word. That's it. And then you can go further and further and further. And then Buddhists are in that way smart, and they say, because now suddenly they feel that they are being cornered, sort of thing. And so they finally say, oh, it's shunyata, you know. It's the emptiness. And put a name on something that that you cannot really put a name on, you know. And then once again we feel, yes, that's true, that's true. So I forgive you, you know. Yeah. So yeah, that's how funny it is, you know. That's how, in a way, simple it is. But one thing's for sure, maybe it's sad, maybe it's disappointing, but you cannot stop that explosion. Yeah. We feel like we want to, of course, Nobody wants to see violence, nobody wants to see dispute, nobody wants to see separation. But you just cannot stop it. Yeah. It's impossible. Yeah. So now I lost the train of thought. Your third question was? Oh, wisdom, yes, wisdom. Well, I guess I kind of answered it. Yeah, I think so, yeah. So that's it. And then to embrace that anger, meaning to be not appalled by that explosion, you know. To say, oh, that's horrible, you know. How can human beings are capable of such acts of horror and so on? And I mean, again, that is to feel that way. There's nothing wrong with it, also. But I'm not saying that we are damaged goods, you know, meaning that to feel that, oh, but then what if I'm also capable of that, and then to feel frightened by that. So in order to stop all that kind of anxiety, then we, as I said, that observation, you know, that observation is very important. That heart that we develop, where we open our heart or open our gut, whatever, where we, not literally, of course, but to say, we say, oh, that somebody has great stomach, you know. I say that instead of saying that a person is healthy, I call it that person has great center of gravity, you know. Anyway, so instead of saying that person is big boned, you know. Anyway, we open our heart, or as we say in modern terms, open mind, you know. Same thing, mind, heart, or gut, same thing, yeah. When we open it and observe closer and closer and closer, and not be embarrassed by it, and then we observe closer, then it is as good as embracing that anger. And then, I mean, if you want to decorate it in this, oh, you poor little anger, you know, and so on. But basically the idea is to not be appalled by it, by that result, which is violence, and the causes such as, you know, all these. Sorry. And so we try to embrace it, meaning not as something, okay, to begin with, as if it's separate from you. So therefore, I mean, when we come to the core of it, but to use the very logic that when I'm angry, I am anger, you know, to use that. And there's no way to deny it. And so to accept that, you know, acceptance in this case. It's the embracing aspect, I think, to accept that. But then, now that I've realized that I can actually channel it, decorate it, use it, then isn't that wisdom? Yeah? Because anger is very good, because in this case, there is no such thing as my anger or your anger. Anger is just anger. Meaning, when one is angry, even though one sees the enemy there and I'm here, yes, your eyes pick up that, I don't know, light, color, shadow, whatever, and through all these sensories. But none of those matters, yeah. There's just one sort of, as if there's a force, invisible force, just called anger, and it does not matter. And if you give in to it, if you swing our arms, it's liable that we will swing it on somebody, on the very person that we want to protect, I mean, there are a lot of funny memes on YouTube where somebody is trying to throw a punch at somebody, but as they prepare the punch, you hit somebody, the very person you want to protect, because you are in that state, you are one with anger. Yeah. And so, since we can see on the surface it's like that, then there is no real my anger or your anger. So in fact, if you think of the causes, then meaning criticism, yeah, which is as good as anger, then we can see that it's extremely sharp, yeah, this criticism. It's so sharp that it can tell you exactly where you are. Whereas if you ask your friend or somebody, where am I, they're actually not honest in a way, because they will consider a lot in terms of what they will say where you are. But the so-called enemy, the one who criticizes, has no inhibition, and so they will tell you exactly where you are. That's where you are, silly, and it's very sharp. And because there was that person is not holding back anything, and so therefore, of course, it's very clear, very sharp and very clear. So that's the embracement, that's the wisdom. So not necessarily wisdom coming from here, there, but it can come the other way. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Anyway, it's fine. Okay, there.
Thank you, and I feel privileged among all these hands. Since yesterday we've had discussions on pride, which result in moments when you feel you have it. You have the observation, you've developed the patience, and then it sneaks in, and then you're proud. But then a whole cocktail of emotions stirs up, and then you think, oh, I'm sitting on fear underneath that pride because I might lose it in any moment. So do I just continue to observe and develop this calm abiding mindset, or is there another antidote?
Thank you. Yeah, in this case, I think no one can deny that the formal practice has a lot of use. Yeah, and so in that way, I can sort of advocate all these rituals. Yeah. From that ground, in that context. Otherwise, these rituals are not necessary. Yeah. So when I say that, I'm saying kind of like two things in one go. Yeah. One is that therefore the formal practices have benefit, has their own uses, and at the same time, because of that very fact, we don't have to feel that we are completely dependent on that, and that the meaning of being a practitioner is to become addicted to the practice, because sometimes we can get that kind of wrong notion, If you say, "Oh, that is a very good practitioner. He or she has been practicing for so long," as if that person has found a way to become addicted to it, So, yes, there is a time or a place to do these formal practices. Yeah. But we, and as for the latter part, but we do it to a point where we can no longer separate the practice from applying into our everyday life. And so, we have to come to that point. So therefore, the average, or the average saying is 3 eons. So that's just, a rough estimation. But that 3 eons could be longer than 3 eons, way, way longer, But it could be shorter also. It really doesn't matter. It has more to do with being skillful. Yeah. Being skillful enough so that it's like saying turning 3 eons into 3 years. So there is, in a way, some sort of a strange resemblance to the 3 years practices, So yes, being observant, because if a habitual pattern, in this case, strange to say it, but some sort of flexibility, if that's not there, or basically awareness, because how to say, you see, when you really try to come up with an absolute sort of method or an answer, it's almost impossible. Even I'm having a hard time right now. So at the end of the day, we just roughly agree that there is something which is called formal practice. So let's say from a logical point of view, there is sense in investing a bit of time in formal practices, so that once again you develop a habit, so that basically you get into the habit of observing. Because right now it is probably safe to say that we don't, not that we don't, but maybe we are not aware that actually we can observe, you know, we can just watch. Because right now we are in this sort of very thick traffic jam and think that there is no time at all to watch. There is no space to observe. And if you can get 1 inch, you know, further from the other, or from whoever it is on your side, is it, you know, then we can reach home faster, or we can reach our office faster. We are just in that mode, and that's it. We just don't have room to observe. Yeah. And so these formal practices are like, it's strange to say, it's the jam itself in a way. Yeah. Because the jam is sort of so bad that you kind of give up, you know. It's like as if there was an accident up there at some junction, or I don't know, something happened, you know. And so therefore you happen to just give up, and then just I don't know, come out of the car or something. And for the first time you realize, okay, when you are in this highway, if you happen to be not driving, if you happen to be walking, in fact, then you have a very different perspective, you know. You know, that kind of situation is changing here now, with the building up of all the improved highways also. Otherwise, in a way, there is a sense of comfort in this region where you know, you can cross the street any time, or with whatever, you know, means, you know. But in a very sort of so-called developed societies, we look at the highway in a sort of very mechanical way, yeah? That it's just for that particular vehicle, for that speed, and nothing else. Anyway, I'm going too far. So in short, yes, I'm just sort of trying to sell the the formal practices, yeah. That they have its you know, it has its own qualities, yeah. It can just give you that spark, because these formal practices, when it comes to you in your life, it's like as if, what is this, you know? Just like a traffic jam, or probably worse in a way. You just don't know what it is. It feels like as if it sort of landed in your lap out of nowhere. Yeah. Meaning, if you look at your history, you know, of how you how you became a Buddhist, you know, which sounds strange. Each of you would have very unique history in terms of how you encountered Buddhism. And often it could be just a very special traffic jam, yeah. That something didn't go right, you know. And out of that wrong turn or traffic jam, then suddenly you gained a different perspective, you know. And so yeah. Yes, when the worst or the so-called worst part of oneself, if you can say that, seems to really take control of oneself. The worst of the worst, just imagine, yeah? Like, to each of us, we all have something that we call, now, that's the worst, That's the most despicable aspect that a person or an individual or a human being can do. Think of that, Because we relate to that aspect as having no way out, which we sort of mortalize it by saying hell and so on. Yeah. But basically it's just an idea, yeah? So think of that and then see from that state, is there a way out? Yeah. Is there a way out of that? Obviously the shortcut is, obviously there is, and one can come out of that, yeah. How do I say this? I'm trying to find something very epic to say. But I guess there isn't. Well, one way of saying it is that everything comes to an end. Yeah, that's one way of saying it. The moment it seems to feel that there is a point in time, sort of in a historical manner, that from here it went wrong, or here it began to build up, and it led to this, The moment we have that kind of notion, it automatically suggests that simultaneously it's coming to an end, So that's one way of going about it. The other way of going about it is that, of course, this is not a way, this is not a method to have an excuse to slip into practices of misery, by saying it's okay, it'll be all right, everything will work out. Of course, we say that to a friend or to someone, you'll be all right. But that's just, in a way, just a verbal gesture or a friendly gesture. It's not implying in any way that you can do it again, So it could sound like that. But the very fact that, if you think of the worst thing of the worst that one can do, that one can get involved in, that at the end of the day it's just made up. it becomes only bad or only that negative compared to the idea of something else. Yeah. So in that contrast, then it becomes that big, and to a point where it can sort of become so heavy that you feel that you cannot get out of, get out of that situation, if one should fall in that situation. But in reality, we know that it's just made up. That no one can really fall in a realistic or a solid place called, the worst of the worst. Yeah. So, yeah, these methods are, these practices are not to say that everything will be all right, to make it look like as if everything is vanilla, everything is sort of we say things like everything will be, all things that happen has a good reason, It can sound like that, yeah, but obviously that's also not a final sort of goal. It's just for a temporary. Those are just sort of temporary, solutions. It's like a pep talk, Yeah. Okay.
Yesterday you were you were connecting anger and patience via awareness. So the other day I had the opportunity to just let the anger be, which was there inside me, without taking any look at the trigger.
Right.
And I noticed, I was aware that there was patience, but the patience was for myself. And it was very real. And the anger kind of was gone afterwards. But it seems to be very different from the kind of patience you were explaining before, which you attained by telling yourself stories of origin and reasoning and coming to that point of forgiveness. So how is that? Is it two kinds of patience, and how is it connected? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like as if there are two different things, yeah? But anything that we can explain in a historical manner, then it kind of suggests that we have more excuses to practice, meaning if we have arrived to the point where we, let's say, hypothetically we can call it, I have patience, then we will not be able to explain it. That's the funny thing. Yeah. If you can explain that that whether I have patience or I don't have patience, meaning to be able to think about it, then it kind of suggests that there's a lot to work with in a way. to be very honest. Yeah. Because I think patience or endurance is not just, as I said yesterday, just one single thing, you know. Because patience involves all the other practice of perfections. It involves the previous two and what comes afterwards, the meditation, or sorry, effort, meditation, wisdom, and so on. And so, I don't know how to, if I'm making it clear, but if you can think that, how to say, I have not improved and I'm still here, I'm still angry. Of course, on one hand, that honesty is great, but simply because I can talk about it, it means that I mean, from that ground, that there is still a lot to work with. Yeah, because if one has patience, then one would have no more questions in a way. I'm not saying that now we have to silence ourselves, you know. But let's say if an artist really begins to enjoy in his or her work thoroughly, at some point he or she will have no room to think, is my art getting better or worse, you know. You have just no room for that. Why? Because you are so involved in it. You are, I mean, I use the word enjoyment, but maybe that's getting a little bit overrated by now, you know. It's not saying suddenly I'm constantly smiling or laughing, you know, just because I enjoy, or that I feel that everything is all right. One can still have a very serious face, one can still have one can still be doing the most mundane things every day, you know, and look extremely ordinary. But somehow, no matter how ordinary it is, you are so involved in it that you have no room to think about it. So that's what I mean by, you know, if you can talk about it, it means that maybe we haven't come to that part of enjoyment in a way, yeah. Which is not a bad thing, you know. It's not a bad news. And so it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad news. It could be probably another part of enjoyment in a way, that how to say, I have no more boredom. I have no room for boredom. You know, I still have so many rooms. One could think of the word improve, but not in an absolute sense. But I have a lot of things to do still, you know. But if I can talk about it, then then it means that maybe I'm sort of still maybe not letting go. Yeah. Was that clear to you? Or?
I might have to think about it.
Okay. Yes, the one behind.
Dear Karmapa, I have a question about mind and heart. It's been in my mind several days, and today you talk about this, so it's like you're reading my mind. So the other day when I walk in the street, there was a beggar, a boy, asking for money. So my heart say, let's give him a little of money or food. And my mind say, no, it is karma. I don't do it. And then I left the boy, I do nothing. And I didn't feel good about this. I didn't do this because it's based on my past experience. I done so, and then I feel like people just take advantage of my kindness. And I fear that my goodness or my kindness was in the wrong hands. So because you say like the heart and the mind are interdependent, and I think many people here may get the same situation. That is not only the begging person in the street, but can be in some situation that you may not know what to do with your heart and your mind. So to have a compassion and wisdom at the same time, if you see a bad girl in the street, what would you do? Thank you.
Well, traditionally we say that, of course, we use that as sort of a preliminary practice to train ourselves to give, to be generous. Yeah, and so if you feel that we don't know how to go about the practice of, patience or generosity, maybe just give, without seeking for any kind of reward. Just give. One doesn't have to think that okay, this will. Calculate. Calculate and think that by doing this from a worldly sense, will this really end? I don't know, the poverty of this boy or his family or things like that. And also from a spiritual point of view, how much spiritual points I will score. So yeah, one can just give. What is it? That one begins to practice by giving something that barely belongs to you in a way. That's what they say, In Tibet, in the practice in Tibetan we say, give things like thread or needles. Because over that there will be no dispute, yeah? It's too minor to give. Yeah? But at least it just gets you into the mood of just giving, So, yeah, one can simply do that, and not calculate too much. With what I said about all these things in the past few days, it could sound like as if I said something so absolute, something so final, and so therefore now I must embrace this. But there is nothing final about it, there's nothing absolute about it. At the end of the day, we have to make it work in our own way, yeah. Because I would have said it maybe in a way that maybe it helped me, It inspired me. And I'm kind of like hoping and expecting that maybe that would help others, yourselves. But that doesn't mean that you have to do exactly as how I will feel, because my constitution, varies from you or from anyone. Yeah. But at least the idea, yes, the idea that since we are so involved with idea, the idea is exactly that if a cause for anger happens to come along, or cause for stinginess comes along, whether we call it stinginess or not, doesn't matter, comes along, we kind of know that if you have the general idea that this will link some way to my generosity, or it will link in one way or another to my patience, Then now, in terms of how to go about it in that very moment, it's up to ourselves. Yeah. So one doesn't have to beat ourselves that I didn't give anything yesterday, you know, because as I said, it's gone, yeah, completely gone. Now it's just a memory. And so therefore there's nothing to feel upset about. But again, if a similar condition happens to come either today or tomorrow, the general idea or the general idea is the same. That again, it's an opportunity to it's like a gift, yeah, that once again it popped up. But then again, you cannot premeditate, you know, meaning plan for it, because again, a similar boy could come up, but then it could be an extremely different situation, depending on how we woke up, what we ate, what kind of mood we are in, how to say, desperate that situation was, whether you have anything in your pocket or not, you know. So it depends. Yeah. Yes. Oh, okay.
Ness, can I ask very quick, short question, no answer?
Sorry?
Can I ask only one short question with yes and no answer?
I can try. Yeah.
Would you please grant us a transmission long for the praises of 21 Tara today or tomorrow?
Okay. Okay. I think already we have quite a few. I mean, since we are running on a schedule, so I don't know how well we'll be able to manage, but I will try. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Don't mind me. I'm not repeating. So who is there? Okay. Back there at the pillar.
Thank you. Your Holiness, according to the question you asked, I feel quite stuck in my practice. Actually, I study on a regular basis. I practice every day, and since few years, and I feel that Dharma makes very much sense for me. It's very logical on an intellectual point of view, and actually, when I face a situation, then when I reflect about it, then everything calms down a little bit. So it's become better, it's more spacious. But then when I really look, there is not big change in my mind on a deeper level. It seems that the practice remained very superficial, and it's difficult for me to go beyond like a kind of huge wall. And this wall is very much related to pride, and it's difficult when it's like I'm one of my spiritual friends that told me that I'm too shy to look, and I've been reflected for 1 year about this. And actually, when it seems that I'm too shy to look at my own suffering, because maybe I'm afraid that I will see too much about it, and I cannot bear it. But this pride also doesn't allow me to develop any compassion for others. I have, of course, intellectual compassion, but from the heart, I feel that there is not much. And also it's difficult to receive blessing that would help me to develop myself. So this very pride is really something that stuck me completely. and I just don't know how to go beyond it.
Okay. Um, like I said, with the previous, the way I answered the previous question, it could be that exactly how you feel. Maybe that's where you feel that that's where you are, because yeah, each individual's how to say situation is different. But overall, I would say that it's possible that because of the schooling we get from our practices, the way our teachers have taught, that that the actual afflictive emotion is, in terms of its settlement, or in terms of how it has taken its root in oneself, is so deep that it takes time, it takes effort, and so on and so forth, that we actually believe that literally, And so that's something we have to sometimes question. Not in terms of their advice, but more in terms of how literally we have taken that. Because, as I said, each individual is different, And so, yes, I mean, logically, the way I put it is, I mean, for myself, is that I say that without going, former or previous eons of rebirth, or 3 eons, or 300 eons, or endless eons of rebirth into the past, just by thinking that, let's say, at some roughly from certain age, from a toddler till now, how many concepts I must have produced, and then meaning that how many afflictive emotions I must have produced till today, let's say, Of course, it sounds a little bit too much, but nevertheless, if I want to sort of eradicate that, then from a very sort of stubborn point of view, let's say, then I would say that I just need to spend that much time, let's say, that equal amount of time to sort of reverse it, and I don't have to go too far back. Yeah. But anyway, this is just my own sort of hang up. Yeah, it's just the kind of schooling that we get, that that the afflictive emotion may have taken far deeper root in oneself, It's in a way to create a bit of panic. Yeah. But I think in this case maybe it's allowed to create, because if you don't create a panic in this case, we will just take things too lightly, and think that it's okay, I can deal with it tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. And to a point where then I even forget or I just disregard my practice, So it could be just that. But what we can do, actually, what is really realistic here, is in some ways, it could be exactly as you said, those that we can handle on a surface, So over that, we have time, we have energy, we have at least a rhythm, in the form of formal practices or informal practices, we have control over that. So that we don't, let it slide, and instead we really take care of it. That's what I meant, and that I found that indirect advice about being aware of how many steps there are to go to the first floor, you know, because that's something we can do right now. Yeah, whatever emotion that has taken deep root, we don't know. We really don't know for certain how deeper root it has taken. Maybe it will take eons, maybe it doesn't. But in this case, it's good to be aware, but at the same time, we have no control over that. So we deal with what we have, what we can deal with, you know, what we can work with. And that is the everyday sort of, even if it's just on the surface, we just work with it. That we do our best with diligence, with grace, and without delay and postponement. Yeah. And by doing that, if in fact it takes eons to take care of the root problems, if you are focused enough on the everyday aspects of things, 3 eons would be just like this, you know, before you know it. Yeah. Because one is so involved with dealing with, you know, what is at hand. Yeah. So, I don't know, maybe what your friend said is maybe true, maybe not, or maybe, I don't know, it could be something else, but working with what is at hand, I think it's probably the most realistic thing to do. Yeah. Yes. Here.
Thank you. I have a question about that you said that when the anger is there, it's bound to explode. And there's something I don't get in it. And, you know, I work as what I would call a chaos pilot. I go into chaos, I deal with chaos, and I try to get advice how to get out of chaos again. And in the beginning, it was nice. But then me and my colleagues got better and better at it. So now it's actually almost a joy to go into, because you go into the situation and you try to deal with it in the best possible way. And you definitely meet with a lot of anger when you go to customers and try to resolve their problems. And basically they are very angry with you. So 2 more things. I get very inspired here by the book and your teachings, because it teaches me to really look deeper inside, and that helps me as a chaos pilot, because I can see, okay, this feeling come up now, and that will actually result in anger. And of course I'm not immune to anger. I remember 2 years ago that I got really angry. But I don't see it as the anger is bound to explode. It did at that time, but that just learns me to say, I really have to do better next time. And then it becomes a game for me to do it. So basically back to what I said in the beginning, what is it that is bound to explode? That you talked about, that when anger is there, then it will explode.
Right.
Hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe when I said that, when I was trying to explain about the explosion, maybe I have stressed too much in that to a point where it's that there are actual things that can take place later on, you know, and so therefore we have to do better, sort of thing, or to be better prepared, you know. But what I meant to say was something like more towards the point that I mean, we can only talk about something in terms of either what has happened or what might happen. But if there is a present moment, there's nothing to talk about. Yes. And so therefore, in terms of what has happened, and then to explain that, then we have to explain it like as if there was a chain reaction, as if there was a cause, there's a condition, then it led to that, and therefore that historical aspect, then we can talk about it, and then implement that into the practice, and then sort of blend it with the so-called future, and if it happens, then now we deal with it this way, sort of like a premeditation. But of course, in reality, it doesn't work like that. As I said, when you're angry or when that destruction happens, it just happens. There's just no way to do anything about it in that moment. It's like the moment you have headache, okay, you can take a painkiller or something, but that's about it, so it's helpful for us because we are so used to now. We are so used to the idea of causality, basically. When I say history, I just meant causality, that from point A to point B, then to C, and so on. So, because we are so used to that, then it feels like as if we can prepare for it. Yeah. I mean, that's why then I was saying earlier about what was it? The formal practices and so on. That it has its own value as long as we think that we can prepare, We can change the course of tomorrow. So for that satisfaction, we do various things, preparation. But when it really or when it seems to happen, that's it. There is nothing we can do. So therefore, the idea of the formal practices or whatever we do is just a way to quiet that very mind, that very mind that is used to think of causality. Of course, causality is it's a very sort of, at least according to concept, it's a very appropriate concept. It can help things explain. It can help put things in order, and so that we can have a communication. But beyond that, it has no real place. So, because we are used to that, then accordingly, a remedy is given. So that's why it says that it's like as if we have someone to respect or someone to fear of, Like we say, oh, I'm a God-fearing person or a Karma-fearing person or whatever we say. It's kind of showing the symptom that as if we are still under that spell, of thinking that there is more than just now, more than just what we have here. And so that explains why we want to come back again to see how much we can improve, how far we can go. There's nothing wrong with it, yes. I'm not trying to also drive us away from all this also. There is no point. In fact, it could be from a success point of view, bad. Then we will have no way to pay the electricity bills, Fortunately, this time the weather is good, so therefore we don't have to use air conditioning, But otherwise, there is no. I mean, that's the thing. we either jump here or there, here, there. We can never really find a middle ground, you know, where we can see that everything's kind of seems to imply each other or connected with everything. And so when we think we are happy, when we think we are relaxed, when we think that now I have good merit because I seem to feel healthy, I seem to feel that everything is going well, in that moment of relaxation, then we just become, I mean, it's not a, you know, self-scolding, but we think that, oh, this is what it's all about, this is, I don't know, this is Mahamudra and so on, you know. And we just basically become very, very too relaxed. And then the health seems to slip away, and then now we panic, and out of that panic we do something, and then it seems to it forces us to latch onto something, and then in that moment then we jump to the uttermost sort of extreme of thinking, whatever is most absolute, I will do that, you know, or whatever is the best therapy that money can buy, I will jump onto that. And so therefore, once again, we are on a complete extreme. And so therefore, constantly we don't realize that we are, we are just constantly separating so many things apart. Yeah. And so therefore, that's the same case with everyday situation. Anger, patience, like as if they're completely two different things. Yeah. And so this yeah, that's how funny all things are. Yes. So now that we have come to this point, then since you all had asked yesterday to practice the Samandabhadra practice, or the King of Aspiration prayers, then I had asked the organizers here to recite or to lead that prayer. And I also thought that it would be appropriate to also recite the 10th chapter of the Bodhicaya Avatara, which is which will, I think, is really appropriate, you know, because what we have read so far or discussed so far it all sort of, if you want to apply that through a formal practice, through a formal means, because within the verses it talks about just the informal aspect of things, you know, how we can apply every day. So now if you want to do it in a more formal way, then through these, through reading the 10th chapter, then we will be able to implement it like with better concentration. And so it is both a prayer of aspiration as well as also dedication. And so therefore, in my own sort of way, the way I have, I think, described in the past, not really the differences, but when we think about aspirations, it's like inhaling, I said, or at least I wrote. And when it comes to dedication, it's like exhaling, you know. And so for me, that idea was very comfortable, because And it's not that one, how to say, leading up to all the way to Buddhahood, it's not like you have, because I keep using the word like harness and so on, accumulation, that they store in a magical vault sort of merit and wisdom over and over again, that's suddenly they have reached that milestone, you know. And so therefore then they have a say over others and so on. So I think the way I understand it is that yes, they I mean, if you read here, particularly the verses that I read today, then we can just relate to Shantideva that each Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or same thing, that if you think of their kindness, if you think of their heart, or in this case, in terms of their patience, that they have gone through so many lengths that we just cannot comprehend just how loving they are actually. Yeah. Meaning, if you can just imagine just one individual from each of our lives, because there will always be one, you know, that takes the cake. It could be one's parents or siblings or friends, someone in each of our lives that we feel that, wow, that person really touched my heart in every way, and it continued to do so. How I wish I can be as courageous or kind as that person, you know. We all have one at least, you know. And so we can just multiply that just to infinity in a way. And even then it'll sort of not really be enough just to touch a fraction of how compassionate a person can become, which we call Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, you know. And so of course it's told, that aspect is told here in a way, in a very dramatic way, you know, that they have given up their limbs and body and life and sacrifice here and there, and become a little bit too religious, you know. But from their point of view, when they did it, they have no ego in terms of I'm doing this for this or that, you know, that they are just doing it because they cannot see anything else. It's like love-driven sort of thing. That they can see just one thing is just to follow that opened heart, and that's it. Meaning their compassion for whoever is the other, or how many is the other. That they're just completely foolish and completely, as I sometimes use the word illogical, you know, that they just don't depend on logic. That even if it's impossible, that they just don't care. And so that's why that kind of stories move us, because right now we can only relate to them as stories. But as I said, through the individuals that have touched our hearts, if you think of them in terms of not exactly their quest, but through their way of being, we can see that it's not exactly impossible, you know, that they have, according to, at least from our point of view, they have done things that we could not imagine. And so, using that as a proof, then we can justify that those stories or biographies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are also not just made up, that it is possible, you know. I mean, that's how I try to relate through my own emotion. And yes, so in that way, that's how they have accumulated their merit, that's how they have accumulated their wisdom. And it's not that they will become, how to say, as I said, as if rich and wealthy in terms of as if they have a particular sort of bank, where they store all of that. I think that the very idea that inspired me is that it's like saying they have developed, maybe it's a very bad analogy, but as if they have sets of very healthy lungs in a way, in the context of breathing. And if you just observe the function or the nature of lungs, it's what it does is simply inhale and exhale. That's it. Yes, it doesn't store anything actually. Yeah. I mean, we can say a lot that yes, actually that mixes in with the blood, and then this goes there, that goes there. Then we can have a whole story to that. But in short, it inhales and exhales. That's it. It doesn't hold anything. It doesn't get attached to anything, and it's not ignorant. It's also not doing it with a particular motive, or agenda, such as anger. It just inhales and exhales, and that particular rhythm has in it no motivation, no agenda, no religion, no philosophy or anything. Yet it does it beautifully, yes. And so I see aspirations in that manner, that aspiration is a way to sort of, we can call it imagine, or using the so-called concept in the best possible way, to aspire that all the wonderful things that we can imagine in life, and all the things that we cannot even imagine, that may all these things happen. And in that way we sort of accumulate merit and absorb, But as we absorb, as we accumulate, just like exhaling, we let go, or in other words, in my own way, we dedicate, we let go. However much we have generated, we let them go, also without any kind of regret or attachment. And I think a mark of someone that we can call someone a Buddha or a Bodhisattva is someone who is so natural to that, I think. Meaning someone who can imagine the most amazing things, yet at the same time not have any kind of hang-ups in letting go of that. And that will explain why, for example, the various meditative practices function. The generation aspect of the meditation is like inhaling, and then the dissolving aspect of the practice is a way to dedicate, to let go. Of course, it's just letting go, but then again we decorate that in the most beautiful ways, and by saying that I dedicate this all to all sentient beings. And in that way, then it's so it's so flowing, it's so free flowing, and therefore I think then if you're seeking for happiness, I think there is no better happiness than that. And so therefore it's very appropriate, it was very auspicious that yesterday I was asked to asked for us to recite the King of Aspiration prayers, and then I thought we should also add the 10th chapter of the Buddhajaya Avatar as well. So that's what we are going to do, together with the scheduled meditation. So, yes, that's it.
pa lai lon je je sa da lai je yen de ra zo ne do ra je jan je ga ba nya ra da sho san je je da zo je cho na la chan joy barai doi dan de ja zo je da je gom de je be zo naim je do loi ben je zan je do barai jo san je je da zo je cho naim la chan joy barai doi dan de ja zo je da je gom de je be zo nam je do loi ben je zan je do barai shoy san je je da zo je cho na la chan jo kya zo je da je gom de je be zo nam je do loi pen je zan je do barai jo da zo gai je bai sem je je zo be garai da ve de je le ba jo je re se karo zalai ve zere nga den choi je zo do je je se cho je da boy tala jara je o ne je de be gara nam tara da je je da ba be de yo solo o boy me be o je jen shan ne dora je do sho je me da warai ja de ba kyam ne gun do ngo bo jara cho bo jen je ma gu gun do kar zo zo je la jen do je do la se je re ze la cha za lo cho wo je ma gu gun do kar zo zo je la jen do je do la se je re ze la cha cha lo cho wo je ma gu gun do kar zo zo je la jen do je do la se je re ze la cha za lo pa ba je re ze wan ta cho je de zo mo sho ba ye ja la wa ze je dam je la kun de da ve cha cha lo me do be ma me je sa la ze ro mo la so ba wan ja ra ye je zhen ne bol pa be co je she zo zo lo to ma me ne ta de bar me je jo da ca me nga sem ne nya mo wan jo ra be de boy dam je sha ba ra be nama loye cheda vara chejo do moy de baye cheje koroloy korodo soloy korowai jeze madoy bar nyanye medai toje dongwai jazu chingwai semje namlai sezo zoloi daje namai chezabo tamje chanjoy jorjone rembo medo jovaye Jembe balado da jaraje te daraje je solai dai be pabe gole vezreje ma le noi chulai je ja chene de vai chen je zhen nan je jen je le ngai sem je re ze wai ko zon do nan ja re do ye re me jo re wai ma ne be me wai ma ne be me ho oi mane be me 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 oi mane oi mane be me 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 mane be me mane be me Dunje namga dreshen deba jiro ye tam kundu tsawe lama chu kunju kundu tsawe lama chu chu jong kundu tsawe lama chu kebra je jong bere je naza chine balai de lama rang jong jalamo ne che jam gro da che bara che jalai bo nam te se nga ge da dor je le bo sing ge shen jong thai khara na dor je jalai bo la so be karama bai tem bai cho nam lai sa me shang de ze nga choi ti tro ma zo je be za am re tai za ti ra da yen ja bai che barai she de ye nga da sa ve che ba tai te ku na ye ku na sa che be che ke je je da yen de zo ba de ne zu le je je do be go sum ke de ba ma le ba ye de ba ra ke che la de so la ba ta pa ne da so ge lo cho da de mo ke ngoi zhe wo den do de la cho lo wa tang che ba ra ze re ne me pa lo jo ro je ye la sam je ge je sam ne la drum ne gra ma ba ye she ba ku da je ma le nyor do dro ba tang pa ye te la ne je na da je tha la wa shen do lo ba ye ne ba da da ni du zal do so lo te dara che de te be je wa te ma jir zhe wa sim je dam je kun zo be san je gu ba to che re ngo jagar je do arya bada jarya dane dana ranza peke do baba zangbo je molam je jabo baba jamba jano jerbal chanza loy chene zoda chojo je de na de zo je ba me ye zenje gu da je ma luen de da dam je la le dang tang we cha je wo zangbo je be ma lan do do je jawan da 이제 무슨도 신제 되네 러라도 바제 자왕군라 라도 청자로 되직 되나 되네 산제 세제 베나 저바다 대다라 제제 야나 말로 바 던제 자완 다제 가완 대다가 메제 자 영기 열로 자조 저거 자와 군제 연대 rab제 대와라 제바 던제 다제 매도 담바 제와 담바 다 senye 남다 저베 도저도 마르메 저도 도베 담바 자완 대다 라네 저바 제 나자 담바 남다 제저도 제메 보마 제라 냠바 그바 제바 바베 저거 제 자와 대다 라야 저바라 제 저바 가나 라메 저 대다 제와 담제 라야 모 삼보 제라 대베도 Jawa gola jangza jeba je deja sheda demo wange ne leda ngada deje je deva da je jeba je jeba deda damje da je sozur ja choje jawa sanje je ranja namda loda meloda jawa gunje zona ngala daye raga na je je de dhamma na chanje rimba zanje ma janje gomba de da da je damje kholo lana meba karwa gu nyange da de ga je de dhruva gula bijen deve je gaba jinje dunye jubaya da je dhamma Chuchi Shabu Dan Chizo Yara Kuchi Zawa Ye Jawa Chungse Daji Chizo Tamche Daji Chanchu Chingwa Wo Debe Sanje Namda Chochu Ye Chede Dana Kanchu Deda Ramjo Wa Samcho Chanchu Rimbur Sanji Ju Chochu Kale Chena Jinyen Pan Deda Jachi Yongsu Daba Ju Chanchu Chingwa Chungse Jawa Sanji Zije Rabdo Gangwa Jo Chocho Zemze Kalma Jinyen Pan Deda Dado Nimi Dewa Jo Dhowa Chuji Denam Ne Dombara Joje Rewa Ndroba Jo Chancho Jeba Dane Daje Jo Dhowa Kewa Jemba Jo Tsera Kunda Jebe Jeba Na Dado Dane Rabdo Jungwa Jawa Kunje Jezo Loj Sangpo Jeba Yangzo Zoje Chujim Jeba Jeme Yangda Dado Manya Jeme Jeba Lai Kedan Loda Nujin Je Jeba Dada Meye Jen Jova Kunje Jaje Jezamba Tamje Jedo Daji Chuden Dejen Baro Chela Rabze Chanjo Semne Namya Zema Digba Kana Jeba Jurwa Deda Male Yongzo Jangwa Leda Nyemon Deje Lena Choje Jit Jidara Bimu Chime Jaba Nenda Namgara Tobara Medara Shingi Kendo Jona Jazamba Yazon Donga Rade Java Dewa Dala Joa Gunga Joa Damje Lane Bimba Sanjo Jaba Roje Je Senjen Daji Chedan Tembra Jo Sambo Jaba Dane Rab Mawon Galba Gunda Jaba Daji Jada Zumba Ganja Deda Dane Dado Jobra Leda Ngana Dane Zin Jeba Dada Melam Jida Dala Pember Debe Jobo Sambo Jeba Rabdo Dumba Deda Daya Dado Chebra Deda Dagi Naya Yeme Sanje Seje Vina Ngozum Dado Daji Jawa Mawa Galwa Kundo Meja Deda Laya Chebar Jaje Jawa Namji Tambe Chujen Changjo Jeba Kundo Nawa Sambo Jeba Nambra Jawa Mawan Galba Kundo Chebara Siba Tamje Doya Korwan Swana Yeje Dane Mez Tabda Sharab Tinzi Namdarda Yonde Kunje Meze Zede Doje Dena Dunye Jena Shindere Zonje Meja Sanje Seje Vena Shubal Changjo Cheba Chuje Tawarje Dedam Jazam Chunla Tusum Zenye Sanje Jazo Shena Jazo Kalbo Jazo Chuje Rabdo Songsi Yala Jazo Drage Jawa Guya Yala Nam Jowa Kunje Samba Jeje Sanje Songla Dado Job Tesum Jebe Jawa Tamje Da Kholo Tsuna Rado Korwai Teda Jaya Sunya Mizel Loye Dabje Daja Rado Mawa Kalba Kundo Juba Tamje Jeye Dajan Juba Kaya Kalbo Tesum Sede Keje Chaje Jene Juba Tesum Sheba Meye Singe Teda Kejik Chila Daje Tado Deda Jene Jaya Juma Jerbe Nada Dabje Kaya Dezon Daje Jingwe Deda Deje Dendo Ngamba Dedara Malu Chonam Tamje Dewa Namje Shinge Kuelaj Kaya Maje Jede Draman Deda Rimbar Sanja Golo Guru Nyangen Gwenbu Gunje Zhondo Daje Woi Gwane Nyerwe Zunzhu Domdan Gune Goye Tekbe Domdan Gundu Yende Chebe Domdan Gundu Jaba Jamba Gundu Jebe Sonam Domdan Chaba Meba Jebe Yeje Shera Dabda Denze Dabda Changchuk Domda Yangda Jaba Leje Domda Yangzo Nimon Domda Gundu Jambra Deje Dona Tome Rabje Zangwa Jebe number daje je simje jazo dane namba jo chana jazo rabdo donje yeje jazo rabdo gombra cheba jazo number daje malam jazo rabdo zoba sanje jazo rabdo cheje kalba jazo meje chebra kaya de zum shekbe jawai chanjo chebe melam chedan sambo chebe chanjo sange ne tege daje male zoba jawa kunje seje dowa kundu sanje ja keba teda chongba chebe jawa deda damje rabdo le da nga da ye ja nam da cheba nam da shena yang da ngowa sambo cheba jinja tentra daja deda zomba kone deve zomba chebe jambal jine melam chebra mawa kalba kundo meja te jawa male zobra cheba dane cheye maja yende namja zezo mebra cheba cheme bala nene deda salwarje namje tardu jurba jezam simje malu thaye deje jeza leda nyamon tarjo daje molan dayan dezam kaya choju shenan thaye renje jede jawa namla lada meye deve chono jenje kangi ngowe jabo deden janjo joje jeze rame lenje zamyan teba jeba sonam tambe chodo dejo kange sangchi molam deta dene nyezo tamche banwa dene drobo nyeba banwa nawa daye deya denyo deda nyeba ramne devara metse ndriyan deda lekbar wong kondo zangbo deya chen deda rinpo medo deje chame ngabo daje degban kange meshe wanje cheba deye sangbo cheba deje nirdo male yongzo jangwa yeje dane zoda tsenam da rekdang kado namda denpa deme do jikde sumbu gunang chebara yo chanjo shingwa chongdo denyo sonne simche penche dendo chanjo kolo rabdo go dena deda jeba damje kaya zangbo chebe melan changwa dane tuetam loba deye nambara memba sanje chanjo chola somni maje jambal jedara kenching bawa deda gunji jezo dalo dewa deda damje rabdo tuzum shebe jawa damje ngowa kangla chodo ngaba dakshin jebe zawa degunja sangbo chuje rabdo ngowa dane chebe tuje jurba reba damje dane cherza ngozum nawa tayi dedo dewa chinje chinde rabdo derzo dene malayin dedo tamje malu ngundu jurwa deda malu daje yongzo cheden jeze simje benbara jave jengur sanje gawa bemo thamba shindo zelek nawa daye longde bayan daje derdo derne daje longde rabdo cheba mambo jawa daje loye dorje chojo namso simje namla bemba mangbo zambo chebe melam tabai gewa jongse daje jezo tene drobe molam gewa nam geje jeje tamje jorwa sambo jeba yongso ngeba sonam thaye damba khando drobe dongal chubur chingba weba mebe nerab tobarajo molam jam deda choje zo taye jowa kunla penje kundo zambo jebe jam nyazone malu domba jo daje janjo jeba la jeba nambara tsamba gewa kande jowa janjo jela jebra chanam gono leda ze donga neba chenye deda daje zonam de tenga jazo tobra Teda Gurwa Jise Do Nayan Dele Nyama Jawa Simba Ye Dewa Jume Chedo Jede Kana Nyawa Kanda Jinye Yoban Teda Dune Lejen Dejen Dewe Gawa Changwe Nyamda Chodoba Changjo Zemba Jinjen Jungwe Chugu Taye Je Chawe Nyamda Sewa Raji Lume Nazaya Tela Zende Nado Shama Liye Dongbo Yang Pazan Shingdo Chongbaraj Tingri Ngurba Dada Ngangba Shezo Genye Jimbe Chende Zodo Nyave Zajo Dane Nyamgaraj Solbung Deya Rinje Bumbo Sansi Shalgi Zaje Darwai Dunjum Riwa Namja Chebai Chame Ganjo Deje Gangwara Dama Donsik Chunje Charba Tengne Zonde Medo Charba Penzun Chunje Deba Deyan Tengne Tejir Medo Bemba Jo Chorame Medon Dama Jingwa Da Shagu Shigyo Rogo Medo Gunde Do Daji Jewe Dobje Laye Ledomne Lamo Namdo Lenjik Daji Pamne Sho Chezere Dene Shimje Meda Kada Chagwe Mes Namra Je Gunde Mazala Denga Jebe Tuzan Dego Suye Tunyam De Kendo Dena Namje Gil Chana Doje Barawa Shodo Ne Rabdo Gawe Shuki Digda Chane Teda Lenjik Trobara Sho Medo Charb Peju Dangje Paba Ye Yalwe Medo Tongjurinne Lobor Dewe Chimba Deje Samba Da Semnya Namji Chana Bema Tongwara Sho Chada Jigba Porla Ringbar Tsurshu Ombu Tedo Ne Kange Tuye Donga Kundal Gav Shojen La Jowa Gune Yongjaba Janjo Sim Tsewa Jejuru Ba Shono Subu Chimbar Jigba Meba Cheba Cheshek Je Keje Laje Cheben Da Shabje Bema La Cheje Toje Leje Ula Medo Tume Tsoje Charba Ba Kanzi Yengo Lamo Tongja Tuyang Jade De Deje Javian Dendra Tone Dane Semnyal Chaju Dembarajo Tedara Daje Geza Kundu Sangla Zo Chanjo Semba Jiba Mejen Dewa Da Sirje Chishim Nyede Charwa Bedone Simje Nyal Teda Ngwa Gajo Je Dendra Namne Chigla Je Save Je Dan Jawa Dame Nyambe Mejendo Yeda Namne Dewa Pawa Jire Sewa Je Chane Babe Wajin Yeda Namne Simje Je Chuje Dado Sewa Lowa Namje Sodo Jo Wembe Dad Lamo Junju Jibshen Do Jumba Neme Darwaj Chirbu Namje Koda Da Cheba Namje Seda Gomba Namje Chuda Da Tongwa Jimbo Dobraj Jimba
Gambo Game Jen Yelo Nyeshin Ramye Nam Hada Songwa Jib Midar Kunle Taba Dang Tedan Shiram Zeden Shin Sedan Choban Punzo Ne Dado Seram Jambara Shon Tamje Namkan Zeshin 롱제 제바 메브라이쇼 제바 메진 세메바 로만 도네 조브라이쇼 셈젠 지지 총고간 대다 지지 침불 가도 쟁강 중앙바 조장 푼솜 조브라이쇼 지덴 부메 진예바 대다 제바 니드 마랍 남네 도도쟁 아장 다장 좀브라이쇼 다게 소남 디에네 셈젠 탐제 말려바 디바 탐제 온 다도 개와 제보라쇼 장주의 sem당 민라신 장주의 줄라 조원당 산제 남제 용성신 류제 레장 심진 대단 탐제는 세양 범의 ring원쇼 다도 대보란 선주로신 제외 자양 자마주 어섬 신기 제매저 산제 당내 산제세 천년 조배 조놈 담제 강원하쇼 담제 돈 사지에다 생마 라소 메바다 란타라 따념 외도에 란신 잠보로 내기로 고지 징크로 요그로다 장주 셈바 mam보다 랑게 렉베 사댕다 젬바란 제베 요기로 루진 군지 자단 신당 외즈라 담제다 남갈 레장 최제다 유메 체보라 토보라쇼 대다다도 산지 산지에 세당 체주로지 제베 정본 다예베 로에 라마 체보라쇼 하양 두스 참베 토주로지 야보 최진 제바단 지덴 다장 다와라쇼 메남 토단 덴바단 상한 대전 루버 컨트롤 심볼 라소바 딘제 셈단 덴주로지 셈젠 가양 두마죠 디바라 마주라 나마주라 지단 예바라 menjuru gaya yime demajo zola kanam lobadan kadun chije lene sho tabora gendun tumbadan gendun tanyang rub laban debe gelonda wembanda jan tobra sho iwa tamche panen senne leron gomjuroje gelon manam yedis tabdam neba pomara sho dejin rabdo chungwa gun sutum nyamba mejuroje sutum chalwe yijone tado digba sejir denro dan tojuro ne deyan tojo menyam cho keba nuku sunyam dajan yebora sho june yimso dabo don chonam kundo dabo sho inso denga menyam
Mebaya lave lave ledon deda sanje nyan sanje gunje lema sanje damje je 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 sanje dewa sami tado deda denje je chanje namje ne roden dola gondo jo gombo ye ne gang simje namla denje jo deje rasa je namda nyende namja de dajan jaya gandinje sara garwa doba Taudo zara chenpa da rabdo jongwa cheba Kine ja nyamda neje zawa jo tsera gunda wene ba pinzum denpa dobra Kanze dawar deba am jongze chewa Jayan denye ne jeme bayan dowa Chocho namje da dobe simje gunda drabje je cheda je Jize namga neba dan jowa jize nejo deze dane nejo Jove dongal serwa jo jove donga ganje ron tegon dala men Chanjo zemba jende je jowa tela jo para jo jove donga men Jungwe ne demba nye da gorde da jide yore nejo je kange jenje je lo jo jambe yang la jo kange jenje da Give Jelan da Jaza Yama Wanzara Zanje Na Taye Daye Zojo Doje Jemba Ta Yendo Zemba Doje Dona La Zanje Jaz Pame Koroje Koro Deje wanza bada me baye de vaye jeje da jende ne zebe jraman da je vaye chenge parama che baro tero jene chado joy de je je me la da ba de cho cho san je cho sen dam je je me ro ba ra je la de so te ya da ben je bu da na so wai cho de ya wa ze je go zo ni zo lai je ye rang da je de zo je zo ba go jo so lai che ba bo ya ve de ba be jo je wa sem je gu lang ho cho ge san je do je je za tam je de Dēnyē dāne tsō tsō dē, tsē rē nē mē nyam dō pē, tsē drē sā jē nē jir jē. Nam jē tsē bē jē mā dō, dē wā chēn dē jē jir jē. Kē nē bē mā kā jē dē, lē dē dē lā sāng jē shō. Chāng jē dō Drube druvai drembai joi sunan de ye tam je se banye ton ne ne be da nai pam je de ke ga nai che ba lai cho ba ye se be cho le do wai do lai wa rai jo chan jo sen ne re bo che ma je ba nai ke joro je ke ba nyai ba me ba dan ko ne go doi pele wa lai shu
1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Need to check. 1, 2. 1, 2.
가자는 이지 가자는 힘들어요. 산제 치도 갈래. 딜라치.
Sanjin Chodoyin Sojin Chonoyin Lai Chanchoyin Pardoyin Dane Kyosoyin Dage Choshoyin Jimbe Sunayin Jem Dolayin Pense Sanjin Dobai Shoyin Sanjin Chodoyin Sojin Chonoyin Lai Chanchoyin Pardoyin Dane Kyosoyin Jem Dage Jinsoyin Jimbe Sunayin Jem Dolayin Pense Sanjin Dobai Shoyin Sanjin Chodoyin Sojin Chonoyin Lai Chanchoyin Pardoyin Dane Kyosoyin Dage Jinsoyin Jimbe Sunayin Jem Dolayin
Penser
Sanjin Dobai Shoyin Semjin Tangjin Dewayin Dayin Devin Judayin Dembayin Jurjin Dungayin Jin Judayin Tawayin Jurjin Dungayin Mebin Dewayin Tambayin Dayin Mendawayin Jurjin Nirin Chadayin Nidayin Rawin Danyayin Chimbol Nimbayin Join Jin Simjin Tamjin Dewan Dayin Devin Judayin Dembarayin Jurjin Dungayin Jin Judayin Tawayin Jurjin Dungayin Mebin Dewayin Tambayin Dayin Mendawayin Jurjin Nirin Chadayin Nidayin Rawin Danyayin Chimbol Nimbayin Join Jin Simjin Tamjin Dewan Dayin Devin Judayin Dembarayin Jurjin Dungayin Jin